What is your definition of the blue economy?
Yeah, this is there's so many different definitions that can come out when you say something like the blue economy. For me, it's how I incorporate in my research, it's how I incorporate in the research I do at the university, it's the research we do at the company, but it's finding ways to use ocean resources for the betterment of society, but in a sustainable way. I see it as more of a holistic approach than opportunistic. So it's not just taking advantage of the ocean, but really trying to do it in a sustainable way where we balance economic growth and improving the livelihoods of people with preserving the health and well-being of ocean ecosystems.
Is this concept important for the Wilmington area, given all of its water resources? And how would it be important for the area to embrace the concept?
Mhm. Well, taking a step back, if you think throughout human history, humankind has found opportunities in the environment to better themselves and to better society. And in many cases, historically, this has been to the disadvantage of different groups and of the environment. So it's not been very equitable in terms of different groups of people and in how we treat the environment. And so it's important for our area, and it's important in general because I see it as more of an evolved concept of finding opportunities in the environment, and it seeks to balance preservation of the environment with the human needs to create advantages in a more sustainable way. It also, the blue economy concept, it leverages that red ocean, blue ocean strategy, which I learned in my MBA. That's often seen in marketing, where organizations seek to find and develop these so-called blue oceans, where are growing markets and growing opportunities rather than competing in a red ocean, which is a saturated, overdeveloped, highly competitive market. In my opinion, the ocean is our greatest resource. And so in Wilmington, we have so much access to the ocean and the river. The ocean itself is a blue ocean, oddly enough, with lots of opportunities. And in some cases, it's also this great unknown. It's untapped resources, unexplored depths, but it can also be a threat when we think about hurricanes and shipwrecks. I mean, hurricanes are something that are always on our mind in Wilmington. And the blue economy concept, with its sustainability aspect, takes a measure of that respect into the exploration of resources so that it doesn't end up being exploitative.
How can Wilmington actually use that concept, the blue economy concept, to grow and also to maybe set an example for other places? And to what ends could it be a positive kind of focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. Wilmington, it is my home. It has become my home over my journey here. It's a vibrant coastal city, and it's really poised because of its location, its protectedness, it's where it is to leverage ocean resources for a variety of blue economy endeavors. We are a port city. We have rail and highway connections, and we're also a college town with both the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and Cape Fear Community College to service many levels of education, and it's highly integrated. We are a research intensive area where we have a booming entrepreneurial community. And as such, we're well positioned there to grow several vital aspects of the blue economy, including education and research, including conservation, aquaculture. We have amazing aquaculture research groups at the university, sustainable fisheries, marine tourism, because we are a tourist area, but we can leverage that to more marine tourism, shipping and transport innovations to lessen the impacts on the environment. Coastal engineering is a new program at UNCW. We have ocean energy that we're looking into in our area. And of course, my favorite is going to be marine biotechnology, as that's what I do research in. So we have lots of opportunities here and lots of ways that we can leverage this and incorporate here and integrate into this concept of the blue economy. Wilmington, it was once the largest city in North Carolina. And I think it's too much to say that we can be again, or that we would even want to be again. I think that we don't want to be that giant North Carolina city, but we can continue to make Wilmington more than just a beach destination, a transient place where people come to vacation and then leave. At UNCW, we talk a lot about a love of place. And so building that community is really important, that we all love where we are, and this is our home, and we love being here. It's a privilege to be here. And so we can leverage that and grow our economy in a sustainable way. I'm fond of the phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so the benefit of the blue economy is not just limited to those sectors that I mentioned that have to do with sustainable ocean use of ocean resources. There are significant economic benefits and sociocultural impacts that can be felt throughout our area if the blue economy is successful here.
Yeah, you paint a pretty exciting picture of a future state, in that area. What are the critical, the critical steps that the community and the leadership needs to take to do this?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of key steps, and I see both behavioral things that need to be changed and technological things that need to be nurtured. And you have to have both these changes, these things to be nurtured for success. For behavioral, we really need collaboration. So we need to be able to come together and work together for success and have mutual celebration, so that when one sector wins, it's a win for everybody. Everybody sees that as a joyous event, that it's not just, I'm the only one who's allowed to win. Everybody wins. And if one person wins or one sector wins, these are critical for success. It's very difficult when you're growing an economy and there's opportunity on the table. Everybody wants a piece, and it can quickly dissolve into infighting and selfishness. And infighting and selfishness are cancerous for success. And so we need our leaders to nurture collaboration and nurture mutual celebration. One sector or one group cannot and should not shoulder all the weight of leveraging the economy and growing the blue economy. It has to happen together. They say like Rome was not built in a day, but it was also not built by one person. Like, it takes time and it takes collaboration to build something like this. And there has to be understanding and compassion and empathy for groups for the process to succeed. Technology is another piece of that, besides just the behavioral piece. If we're talking about, because of course I'm marine biotechnology, that's what I see, that's what I teach, technology translation. And so again, like I said earlier, like, the greatest innovation does no one any good if it's just sitting on the bench, on the lab bench. So innovations have to get out into the marketplace, where they can do the most people the most good. And in technology development, we talk about this valley of death between innovation and commercialization. So you have this great idea and you have selling the idea, but there's this gap in between that we call the valley of death. You know where you are and you know where you want to go, but you see this like massive chasm between where you are, which is the idea, and where you need to be, the technology on the market. And so we need programs to help innovators, either companies or academics, whoever the innovator is, to get there, to get across this valley of death. When we started, my husband and I started our company, one of our mentors said that, who had also started a company, was an academic, had said the hardest part was surviving to the 5-year mark, which is very daunting when you think about this as like a first-year company. How am I ever going to make it to 5 years? And in that time, we're 7-8 years now out. And so I've seen many of these amazing, wonderful entrepreneurs. They have great innovations, and they end up flashing in the pan and disappearing. And it's incredibly sad to see that. I read a statistic that said about 20% of businesses fail in that first year. Those that survive, 30% in the second, 50% by year 5. And of those 50% remaining, only about 30% will survive to 10 years. That, if you calculate that out, that gives a startup failure rate of over 90%. which is, those were 2019 numbers. And so the COVID-19 pandemic has not made this any better. And so we need ways to help these entrepreneurs so we don't have such a high failure rate. And the most common, in this article I read, the most common reason for failure is lack of product market fit and marketing problems. Those over half of the failure rates were because of these two, these marketing, that valley of death, getting it out there to the market, getting it to fit the market, finding that blue ocean to get your innovation in. And so we need support for innovators, innovations, new companies to survive past this valley of death. We need corporate mentorship, but we also need to establish that market feasibility of the idea. It's data driven, it's science driven, it's ways of showing that this is feasible. I'm not sure that we have that best pathway yet, but it is something that so many amazing people in the Wilmington region have been diligently working on.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you bring up this, this convergent need between kind of this human-centric behavior. What are some of the greatest challenges that need to be overcome? Is it people? Is it money? Is it access, for this to be successful for Wilmington?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all. There's no one answer for how to do it, and I don't necessarily know the best answer either. It's something that I'm learning. It's something I'm an educator. I am a constant learner, and so these are things that you look for and you try to explore. I mean, economic development, it's not easy. It's very difficult to do. And when you add scientific innovation to it, as is typical for the blue economy, it can be even more difficult. Is trying to get these pieces together, find the human capital, find the investment, translating that investment to investors who don't necessarily understand the science. It can be very difficult. And so again, the key challenge is that communication and collaboration between such diverse stakeholders so that everybody can understand and get on the same page. And maybe you don't understand every detail of whatever the innovation is, but you can understand where they're trying to go, and you can understand the pitfalls of the process. Scientists, like I said, scientists and business people specifically speak very different languages. And I was not nearly as aware of this until I entered the MBA and just saw how very different I felt as a scientist. And I still am a scientist, and I still feel different when I try to talk business. It's awkward for us, and it's awkward for business people to try to understand science. And it can make that communication piece and the pursuit of common goals difficult. Each group, science and business, needs to give each other a little grace. So really, this is somebody I heard once, we all need just a little grace and understand we're all on the same team. We all want to achieve the same goal of economic development and improving our area, even if we go about it in different ways. Scientists will go about it one way, business people will go about it a different way. When we can get together and do it in the same path, we're very successful. But if we're doing different paths, that's still okay. Different people will get to the same end point, just different ways. I think opportunity comes in many different forms, and in Wilmington, everybody's very eager to make this successful. We're very encouraged. We're all really want this to succeed, and I think that having that mental fortitude is 90% of it. Just wanting to have it happen.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you about what is marine biology, and what is that, and what is the technology that your company is focused on? Because I think that's really interesting, and probably a lot of people don't really know what that is. What is marine biology technology, and what is the value to the environment as well as to people?
Yeah, so marine biology can be any biological system in the environment. For biotechnology, which is where I'm at, marine biotechnology is taking life and using it for a service, a product, or a good. So changing it, modifying it, making it, you can use it in the natural state as well. What my company does is we develop bioassays, which is just a fancy word for tests for marine toxins. And so we use to test the bioassays are based on different biological components, either proteins or antibodies. And we create these test kits that can be used to screen toxins that contaminate the food web. And so it's a protection of human health, but it's also because the toxins can be very hazardous to marine life. It's different ways, allowing different ways to monitor harmful algal blooms and look at toxins in the environment.
So just from my understanding then, it's, you know, there seems to be a connection between the dredging, if the future dredging of the river to open up the ports, possibly, and you know, the possible danger to the water sources. Is that, and then I've heard the story about how Dow Chemical upstream of the river dumped a bunch of stuff, you know, long time ago into the river and polluted. So just from my understanding, that's kind of what you're doing, is to look at any kind of possibly any kind of environmental changes and how that may affect water. Am I understanding that correctly?
So what I study are harmful algal blooms. So these are algae that are just naturally occurring in the environment.
Okay.
And so if you've ever heard of red tides, they naturally bloom. There are some human influences that are hypothesized to cause these blooms to be longer or bigger, with ocean warming and global climate change. There is concern that these algal blooms are spreading. They are natural. They're natural as hurricanes. They are part of the hazards that we live with, but they do seem to be getting stronger and bigger. And so there's a lot of science looking at why are they getting bigger? Why are they getting stronger? My little piece of the pie is just looking for and developing ways that we can monitor the blooms and that we can monitor the seafood supply so that people don't eat things that make them sick.
What do you see are the three most important things that the Wilmington leadership can do right now?
Yeah, I think communication, if it hasn't been apparent already, I'm very into open communication, creating a sense of community. And I think that something like facilitating seminars. So just as the example that you and I just went through, where I tried to, in a very tiny nutshell, describe what I did, and it communicated completely differently than how I had, in my head thought that it was going to come across. So having these seminars or group meetings where we can share project progression, what we're doing, successes, challenges, so that it's not always easy. Sometimes we're struggling, and sometimes we're in our little box, and you may see something that I don't even see. And so having these ways of having open communication and creating the sense of community. And it can be done in a teachable format so that everybody can understand there are different pathways to success. And then we can have Q&A and be like, well, I thought you were studying dredging. Oh, no, nothing about dredging. It's actually harmful algal blooms that cause these toxins to accumulate in the environment. But there are amazing people that do this dredging and these chemical depositions. It's just not what I do. And then I think also, so that would be one, is having this communication, this education, the shared teaching moments. And I think another one would be finding a way to prioritize and fund the blue economy development projects, like through grants or lobbying for carve-outs in the state and federal government, but ways that we can get money input flood into our system, because these can be very expensive endeavors, trying to grow and build an economy, especially one that is sustainable, because sustainability tends to be more expensive than exploiting resources. And so funding it also makes it easier for people to get engaged and getting on board. When there's money, people want to get involved. And so finally, because it is a bit of my passion, is increasing support for our local entrepreneurs. Successful technology translation to the market, getting that innovation out there and getting through the valley death is key to economic development, from my perspective. And that happens best with small and nimble companies, whether that's a for-profit or a nonprofit. It doesn't matter. If you're small and you're nimble, you can really, and you're dedicated to getting it out there. growing companies hire more employees, and many of those come from our local education system, UNCW or CFCC. Our students have this love of place. They want to stay here. They don't want to go. They want to be here in our area. And so we need to support these endeavors so that more of the companies can survive and thrive past that 5-year mark.
Yeah, that's great. So what's your greatest hope for the future?
Sustainability for ocean resources. I'd like to see, my hope would be that we can get to a point where we're a net zero, where what we take doesn't cause any impact back. We're able to capitalize on opportunities. We can grow the economy. We can provide jobs and resources, but without harm to the environment, to destroy the resources that we currently have for future generations, to have that sustainability. We don't want to do overfishing or pollution or human wildlife conflicts in some of the energy exploration. A net zero would be one of my greatest hopes. Another would be equity in use of ocean resources, so that the blue economy is something that can be beneficial to all people, that's within reach of all people, not just a select few. For example, if you do it right and you do it sustainable, things like aquaculture can help solve issues like food insecurity, especially with healthy protein options, so that the people who don't have access to healthy seafood can get access to that, and in developed nations and developing nations alike. So equity, across the globe, when we think about using and using the environment, growing the blue economy. But it's not a simple path to balance social equity and environmental sustainability. In some cases, they're really on opposite sides. Several studies recently, I was reading an article, look at tensions that are within this sustainable development approaches within the blue economy, and how we can have sustainability, but when you're hungry, overfishing is not that big of a deal. So trying to balance that, trying to figure out ways that we can have equity and sustainability. And in the article I was reading, it seems like targeted investments and cross-scale, again, communication cooperation are key for balancing equity and sustainability. I think probably my last greatest hope would be collaboration and understanding between scientists and business people, that too many times it's us versus them, and that they are idiots, whoever they are, and they are selfish and have no understanding of the problems. They have no idea what's going on. They aren't even living in the real world. And it's just corrosive to have these kinds of perspectives. We need to have greater empathy for people who don't have the same priorities as we do, understanding where other people are coming from, understanding that other people have different skill sets than we do. We may not be the expert in everything. We may not be the best at everything. We just know our little piece. And if my little piece can match with your little piece, maybe we can do something great. Finding that common ground so that we can raise up the economy together. And probably my greatest hope is that Wilmington is positioned to do all of these things.